Hi, and welcome to my Cozy Cottage series where I turn my house into a cozy cottage inspired by little cottages that I stayed in when I was in Ireland along the Wild Atlantic Way. If you guys want to join me on my Ireland travels, go subscribe to my new channel, Modish Faye Diaries. I'm going to be posting adventures and other cinematic vlogs there, so don't miss out. For this Cozy Cottage series, I'm going to be tackling little areas of my house versus entire rooms because I want to source everything secondhand, and it's a little harder to do if you're trying to do an entire room versus just little parts of the house. For this episode, you guys probably already know, but we're going to be doing the vanity, inspired by a vanity I personally was using in one of the cottages in Ireland. My current vanity is tiny, it's a bit boring, it's very minimalistic. I got that vanity at a time where I had roommates and I basically had to live out of one room, so all of my belongings had to fit in a room, and I wanted to keep everything as clean as possible, and the best way to do that is with a minimalist aesthetic. Now I don't have roommates and I'm able to stretch out in my house a little bit. I'm still learning how to do that, so I want to focus on my vanity because it's something that I use every single day, and I do think it's something that's going to make a big immediate impact. So it's time to update my vanity space. I'm looking for something that is solid wood, it's simple, it can be dressed up and down, and it has a little bit of a vintage charm. Two other elements that I'm looking for within the vanity is going to be more drawer space than I have in my current vanity, which shouldn't be hard, and I'm also looking for a very flat countertop that I'm able to put things on. I have been searching so far for months for a vanity, and a lot of the vanities that I'm seeing that are real wood have plywood on the sides, and I just want to avoid that at all costs. I really want something timeless that I can dress up in many different ways, something that's going to follow me through life. A heirloom piece, if you will. This video is going to be broken up into 4 phases. The first phase, once I find the vanity, is going to be restoring it. Phase 2 is going to be decluttering my current vanity to get ready to move everything into the new vanity. The third phase is going to be thrifting for the vanity. So we're going to go out and source everything we can secondhand for the vanity, inside drawer organization, and any decorations we want to put on top of the vanity. And then the last phase, and probably the funnest phase, is going to be phase 4, where we decorate the vanity. Now that you guys know what to expect from this video, I'll come back to you once I find a vanity to add to my cozy cottage. I found this vanity for $50 at a thrift store. It had solid wood construction with no plywood on the sides. It had a simple yet functional design and more drawer and counter space than my previous vanity. So I decided to take a chance on it and turn it into my dream vanity. The first stop was Home Depot to grab supplies. This is my first piece of furniture I've ever restored, so I wanted to slowly build up my kit. I really only grabbed exactly what I thought I would need for this project, and I figured I could always come back to grab more as I learned what exactly I needed. How I figured out on what to get just to start was just by watching videos of other people restoring furniture and took notes on what they used. Here's what I ended up getting. I bought nitrile gloves, steel wool pads, a mask, orbital sander, scraper tool. I already had the paintbrush, stitchy strip, odorless mineral spirits, wire brushes for detailed work, wood glue, wood filler, and plastic wrap. Let's get into making over this vanity. I'm starting by removing all of the old hardware. Luckily for me, when I bought this vanity, the top of it was already detached, so the only thing I needed to remove on my own was the mirror top and the drawer handles. On the first day, I did one of the drawers just to see the process needed. The next day, I started to repeat that process on all of the drawers. I started by painting on stitchy strip, using a paintbrush and a generous amount of product, and covered it with plastic wrap so that it doesn't dry out, and I let it sit for 30 minutes, which is the minimum amount of time to let it sit. I highly recommend letting this sit longer. The longer you let it sit, the easier it is to remove, and the less you have to mess with scrubbing. But since I was new to this and impatient, I learned the hard way. Once you scrape away the varnish, I went in with a steel wool pad and odorless mineral spirits and removed whatever the stripper didn't remove. Also, be careful when using mineral spirits. I was covered on my legs and some of it soaked through my overalls, and it left a really nasty chemical burn. I've also heard mixed reviews on using steel wool pads, but after sanding it, it removed any extra steel bits, so I didn't really have any issues. After having success with the drawers, I moved on to the sides of the vanity and repeated the same process on the drawers. Once everything was dried, I began to sand everything down. I went in with a block sander on the edges and an orbital sander on the faces of the drawers and side of the vanity. This was my first time sanding and I didn't understand grits. Because of this, I had to do a lot of resanding later on, so I recommend that you do your research on that. Once I finished sanding, I moved on to trying out the wood filler on one of the drawers that had a crack on the front to see how well it worked before using it on the rest of the vanity. While that was drying, I decided to move on to the top of the vanity. The top of the vanity had a few cracks. The biggest crack on the left side was completely detached from the other and needed to be wood glued. I put a generous amount of wood glue on the crack and used a spatula to work it into the crack. To keep the crack shut with the newly applied wood glue, I used 2 pieces of scrap wood I got for free at Home Depot. I didn't even know that they had such a thing, but if you ever need scrap wood for a project, I highly recommend checking them out. I tightened the clamps so that the wood is pressed together, and then I let it sit. Halfway through, I did notice one of my pieces of wood was angled and causing damage to the vanity counter, so I used an old towel to cushion the scrap wood. After the drawer vanity turned out good with the wood filler, I decided to go in and start doing little repairs on the rest of the vanity. I used wood filler to fill in any holes or cracks in the wood, even ones that no one else would see. I wanted to make sure it was fully repaired so it would last for years to come. I also used wood glue to repair bigger damages and used clamps and more scrap wood to hold everything else in place. The more that I worked on this vanity, the more cracks and things I needed to fix I found. While the wood filler was drying, I moved my attention over to the vanity top that was now repaired and ready to be stripped. I was a little concerned the stripping process would mess with the glue, but it didn't, so I would recommend gluing first and then stripping. The bottom side of the vanity had tiny little holes I filled using the wood filler. Again, no one else will see it, but I wanted everything to be as solid and fixed as possible. Once everything was dried, it was time to sand and move on to other sections of the vanity. The spindles had been stripped off camera along with the mirror and other small pieces, and I turned my attention to hand sanding the spindles the best that I could. This process took a really long time. Also, the bandage on my leg is from the chemical burn that I got from the mineral spirits. And here's a little before and after sanding the spindles. Another day, and with the vanity mostly sanded down, I was ready to start shopping for a stain. I took a piece of wood from the vanity to my local wood store, and they identified it as cherry wood. Instead of doing a stain like I was originally thinking of, it seemed a shame to cover this natural wood that I worked so hard to reveal, so I decided to get some recommendations from the wood shop. Here's what I ended up getting: an oil to condition and a top coat to protect, cloth wipers to wipe off excess oil conditioning, and pads to rub the oil in. At this point, I had been working on the vanity for weeks in between work and life. I was excited to be putting on the finishing coats. The entire process has been such a labor of love, and I've learned so much. The last thing that needed to be done was to replace the back of the vanity. The backs were the worst part as they were warped and falling apart, but luckily they are easy to replace. I bought some hardboard and traced out the old plywood backs. After I cut them out, I just nailed the new backs in, and now we can move on to the next phase. We are on to the next phase. I believe I have what I think is the last coat on top of the vanity, and then I will be able to move it in tomorrow. So before I move it in, I want to go through my old vanity and get rid of as much as possible. My new vanity is bigger, but I really want to just make space for the things that I absolutely love, and I don't want to have any clutter in the new vanity, and I want to be really mindful about what I'm bringing back into my space. But because I do have more room, I'm going to try to organize it a lot better than what is previously going on in this old one. Here's a lot of the jewelry I've already gotten rid of. I will look through my jewelry again just to make sure I didn't miss anything, but I am trying to keep it more on the minimal side. I do still want jewelry, I just don't need as much as I currently have. I started going through my jewelry, putting it to the side just to make sure it was not something I was going to miss because I don't want to over declutter. So a lot of this jewelry has been sitting for weeks. I've sold 3 necklaces and a bracelet, and the rest of this I'm going to try to give to friends and family before I eventually donate. The reason why I want to do this process is because I want to remind myself that everything I bring in I am responsible for. So by having to go through this process of asking friends and doing everything I can before I just donate an item will make me think more consciously about purchases in the future. So enough talking, let's go ahead and get into this declutter. Alright, we're going to start with this section first. This is pretty much just makeup and nail polish, so let's get into it. These are all extra mascara. This is another one of my lip glosses. I used to be really into makeup, but now I realistically use maybe 4 makeup products when I do wear makeup. Honestly, the less I own and the more that I curate my life, the more luxury it feels. Having less items, but the items that I do have I absolutely love, will always be the goal for me. Also, an update, my friend took the vanity, jewelry, and all of my makeup. She was so excited to receive it since she's pregnant with her second child. I actually ended up getting rid of all of my nail polish except for the first 2 that I showed. I ended up just taking the whole set and giving it to a friend. Alright, let's move on to this drawer. So this is where I pretty much keep all of my nail stuff. The second drawer ended up being more of a catch-all. So much of the stuff in here belonged to other places, and there was also a lot of trash. Even so, I managed to get rid of a good amount of things from here. I'll be honest, I love to declutter. It's so therapeutic to me, but I can also have a tendency to over-declutter, so it helps to store things away that I'm on the fence about. Let me know in the comments down below what's your favorite thing to declutter. For now, we're going to move on to jewelry and only keep the pieces that we absolutely love. I'm finally done decluttering everything that I need to for this old vanity. I can't wait to bring up the new vanity tomorrow, but before we do that, we need to move on to the next phase. In that phase, I'm going to take you guys along with me as I vintage shop and thrift for things not only on top of the vanity, but inside the vanity to organize it. So I'll see you guys then. I was mostly in antique stores, but also visited a few local thrift stores to find things here and there. Antique stores tend to be on the more expensive side, but they are great for finding unique decorations. This particular antique store had vintage hardware, which is perfect because I wanted to change out the black hardware that the vanity came with. The hardware that came with the vanity was boring and more modern looking, so I was looking for something with a little bit more of a vintage charm. They had a lot of options, but I didn't want to drill new holes in the hardware, so I was a little limited on which ones I could use. However, I did spot these drawer pulls with little bows on the top that I thought would be perfect. They were vintage, brass, and the little bow detail on the hardware set the theme for the vanity. I saw so many things I wanted for the vanity, but they needed to be the right price, color, and functional for the most part. I had made a Pinterest board for it, so I did have some idea on what I was looking for. Bow details were at the front for things I was keeping my eye out for, but also anything Victorian or pioneer/colonial. As for the price, I didn't really have a budget in mind, but I wanted to keep each item I purchased at least under $20. I did a pretty good job with that, as only 2 items I bought ended up being more than $20. However, the items that ended up being more expensive were heavily debated and thought through, and I don't regret them at all. They really helped make the vanity more special because they were very unique pieces. Welcome to the next phase. You guys were with me as I thrifted, and now I'm going to show you everything that I ended up getting. So it's going to seem like a lot of stuff, but I collected this slowly over a period of months. It took a really long time to get everything, and I started sourcing stuff for this vanity before I even had the vanity. I will say the vanity took a lot longer to find than I had anticipated, so at some point I stopped buying stuff for the vanity because I was a little afraid that I wasn't going to ever find the perfect vanity to turn into my dream vanity. With that being said, some of the stuff in these bags I'm actually not going to show you because they're for different parts of the house that we'll get to later. So make sure you're tuned in so you can see the cozy cottage transformation of the entire house. Anyways, let's get into it. This little bowl I got at Goodwill. I actually did some work on it. It had a chip. I think it was like $2. It had a chip. I put some wood filler in it. You guys can probably see the crack that I filled in with the wood filler. I am thinking of getting some of those blend sticks and blending it in just a little bit better. I also did a wood polish on the wood, but I think that this is going to be perfect for on top of the vanity just to put little trinkets in. I got this one at an antique store, and I had seen it there previously, and then I went to Ireland thinking I could probably find something similar but made in Ireland, and I could not. So when I came back, luckily it was still there. I think I paid way too much for this, but it is a felted work of art. Also, the lace that's around her neck, I thrifted as well, and I just tied it around her. I don't know if this will be used here. I don't know if I'm going to show you because I don't know if it's going to be used here. This is something else I don't know if it's going to be used here, but I might try. This is a little book holder opener. It's brass. I haven't seen one of these in brass. I always see them in wood or plastic. So I thought that this was a really cool find. I only got it for 12 bucks. And I'm thinking of putting one of my vintage poetry books on here and maybe just like reading a page every day and just having it sitting on my vanity. I don't know if I have that much room, so we'll see. This is a little perfume bottle I got for 8 bucks. I don't know what the current scent is in there, but I'm going to take it out and put one of my own scents in there once I clean it off. But I just thought that this was so pretty, so this is definitely going on the vanity with one of my scents inside of it. There's a lot of other stuff in this bag, but this is for other parts of the house, so I'm going to save that for another video. Moving on to this bag. I don't know what's in here. The other stuff is for another section of the house. Oh. Technically, this goes on my vanity. I got some cute little bow earrings. I don't know if I needed any more jewelry, but I got it. This is a crystal little trinket dish. It's either going to be on top of the vanity or inside the drawers for more organization, but I just haven't seen a glass little trinket dish so pretty. So this was 4 bucks. Picked this up. Definitely going to use this. I also picked up some candles. I've been using them already. So this candle holder is a brass one. I want to put one of these on the vanity. I haven't figured out which one. This one is a little bit more chunkier. It's a bit more colonial. And then this one is a little bit more vintage Victorian inspired. So I have to see what I end up putting on the entire vanity, but one of these will sit on top of the vanity. Next up, I have a bunch of organization that's going to go inside the drawers. My microphone died, but we're back. So moving on to this little pile, I got this brass little basket and it goes down so I can put it inside the drawer or I can put it on top of the drawer. It does have little bows, and as you guys know, the hardware that I thrifted had little bows on it. So there is a small bow theme going on. Thinking of putting this inside to organize with. I got this for $2. This is another brass dish. I got this one for $4. I just figured this would be perfect to put into my drawer for little things. I don't know what I'm going to put in there yet. I found these two little wooden organizers. These were labeled as soap dishes. I got them for $1 at Goodwill. So they're just soap dishes, but I'm going to use them inside my vanity drawers for organization. Then something I'm super excited about, I got these two. These were $2 each, and they're jewelry organizers. It was just like fake wood on it, so I spray painted them brass to go with the colors. They were on my Amazon wish list. I ended up taking them off and just trusting in the thrift gods, and they provided. So got these. And the last few things that I got are in here. Everything in here is pretty much for the vanity. I got a lot of this at the beginning before I found my vanity, so hopefully this stuff still goes with what I've been currently buying for my vanity. Oh, this is actually something that I bought fairly recently, and one of the reasons why I got it was because of this bow detailing, but it's basically just a little dish. I can put my scents on there. Anything else that's gonna like stand can sit on here and also catch anything that might be wet so it doesn't get on top of the wood vanity. But I did spend a little bit more money than I would have with anything else that I bought. This was probably the most expensive. That's a lie. There's one other thing that's probably around the same price point as this. This was $24. Maybe that doesn't seem like a lot to people, but when I thrift, I do have certain budget kind of in mind. So, and to keep in mind, this was half the cost of my vanity. My vanity was $50. So this being like 24, 25 bucks, it was half of a vanity, you know? That's how I see it anyways. But it's perfect. It's got the bow detailing. It's brass. It's vintage. I love it. You guys probably saw me working on this. I got this off of eBay. I saw one in person, but it was red. And then I looked on eBay to see if I could find it with it being clear. And I did, but the top of it was a hot pink. So I just got it, spray painted it black first. Then I spray painted it with this color, this brass color. And I'm going to put one of my scents in it. And it's just a really cute little perfume bottle. And that's what's going to go on the dish. That may have been around, with shipping and everything, that may have been around like 10 or 15 bucks. A little pricey, but I knew what I wanted, the vision, it worked. This I got for $4.88. Beautiful vase jar. It looked very Parisian in some ways. I just thought it was really pretty. And so I got this, and I'm going to put little flowers in it to sit on top of the vanity. I got this. This, I think it still goes with the stuff I have. It's just these cute little flowers. It's like a little coaster. I think I got this for like $1. And I am going to put my teas on top of it. So when I'm drinking tea in the morning and I'm getting ready, I have somewhere to put it. I don't want to put it directly on top of the vanity. So got this little coaster. I've actually been using it in my nightstand. That whole thing needs to be redone. But I've been using it on my nightstand because I have a class nightstand. Again, that's got to go. But this might have to be double duty, going back and forth between my nightstand and my vanity until I find another one that I like. And the last thing that I got, and she's kind of the little star of the show, in my opinion. This is the other thing that was kind of expensive. I think this was around $25 again, but it's so beautiful. It's a little music box. I won't play it because it'll go on forever, but it's just the most beautiful vintage jewelry box. I got this at an antique store. A lot of the stuff I got at an antique store, except for the few things that I showed you that I got at Goodwill. I just think that this is so nostalgic. I used to have a music box myself, but this was just so pretty, and I really liked the colors, and I love the needlepoint. The needlepoint is just so beautiful. So again, brass, natural materials. I think it's all going to come together really nicely. That's everything that I bought for my vanity. Of course, this isn't everything that's going to be on the vanity, right? I am going to continue to look for special pieces, but this is not anything that I'm rushing. I want to get the right pieces, and I might already have enough. I won't know until I put it up. I think now we can get started playing with all of this and setting it up and seeing how it looks, and then later on I'll make a list on what I feel like I'm missing. Things that I need to wash, I'm going to do that off camera, and then I'll come back and we can start setting stuff up. Organizing this vanity was basically playing Tetris and just figuring out what not only looks good, but what's functional. I didn't realize just how much I decluttered from this vanity until it was time to put everything away. I love how minimal my makeup and jewelry feel compared to what it was before. It's so much easier to get ready when I don't have other products to shift through or feel like I have to use a product because I haven't touched it in a while. This is my first time actually messing with anything over here, so I'm just kind of gonna go with what's been in my head for the last few months and go from there, and then we can rearrange it if it doesn't look as cute as I thought it does. I tried really hard to be conscious of what I was buying for the vanity. Towards the end, I was afraid I had overbought for the vanity, as some things felt like it didn't have a home, but after a week of using the vanity, things started to settle in and find their homes in the best ways to function. I felt like I bought the perfect amount to start, and there's just a few little things that I want to add later on. The vanity is finally complete. I've had about a week just being able to live in it, use it, and see how it functions, and it is so much better than my previous vanity. I love having more counter space to put little things on. I love being able to leave things out, like things that I like out, whereas my other vanity, I couldn't really do that. Everything needed to be stored inside so that the mirror could close. So it's so nice. It's such a change, and let me tell you, I love this way more than anything I would have ever bought. This is so special to me. There is so much that I didn't even get to show you guys that I did on this vanity. Little things like putting wood conditioner in the drawers so that they slide a little bit easier. Spray painting. I did a lot of spray painting on some of the old drawer handles because they were black and a little bit more modern looking, so I wanted them to match the 2 drawer pulls that I was able to thrift. I will keep looking in the future for some drawer pulls to change out on the bottom from the old ones, but at least now they all match in color. But I spray painted the hardware. I spray painted some of the things that I thrifted just so that they matched a little bit better. Also some other additions. I was going to get fresh flowers, but I felt like that would be a little bit harder to keep up with. And then I realized that I had some dried lavender just sitting in a cabinet, not seeing the light of day. So I decided to put some sprigs of lavender in the little vase, and I think it's perfect. When the fall time comes around, I'm thinking of putting some dried seasonal flowers in there as well, so that'll be fun to look for and kind of change out as the seasons change. Another little detail you guys may or may not have spotted, they're just these wood vintage carved cats, and I, for the longest time, had no idea where to put these things. They have moved around the house and nothing ever really felt right, but now they're just a little hidden detail on the vanity, and I feel like it's perfect. Also, when organizing the drawers, I found a home for quite a few things that I didn't really think I was going to find a home for. One of those things was this little glass jar that we had thrifted. I put earring backs in it. I had these earring backs in like plastic bags, and it just didn't look as cute, but then I remembered I had this little glass container, so I just dumped them all out in here. So I have a bunch of earring backs in here. I did end up thrifting one other thing. Like I said, there's a few other pieces that I do want for this vanity, but I'm going to collect them slowly. But since I have you guys here, I figured I would show you one thing I did add that I didn't show you. It's just a little glass, probably ashtray. I got this at Goodwill for about $2. And when I got it, it reminded me of the other little glass thing I just showed you guys. And so I was like, yeah, I need this. And then I got home and I kind of panicked because I was like, I don't know where I'm going to put this. But this was just sitting on the wood, and so just to jazz it up a little bit, now it sits on there, and it's a perfect match. So I did want to give you guys a little sneak peek. So shortly after I finished showing you guys the finished vanity, I actually went out to the thrift stores because I still need a chair for this vanity. The chair that I'm currently using right now is just not exactly what I envisioned, so I was looking for a vintage stool. So I went to the thrift stores, and the first thing I saw were 2 beautiful stools. I'll give you guys a little sneak peek. I won't tell you which one I got, but that's going to be for another video, so make sure you guys are subscribed and following along for that. But I do want to take a little bit of a break from the vanity. I've been working on this vanity for weeks, and I just want a little change of scenery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on my craft room next. My craft room needs a lot of work. It's kind of been empty and barren for a while, and I really want to get started on making it my own. So if you want to see my craft room turn into a cozy cottage, don't forget to subscribe and follow along, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!